All right, so I'm finally back. Uh, Took a month off that I didn't mean to, but it is, of course, October, the time of spookiness. So I thought I might as well cover some movies that I've wanted to do for quite a while, actually, and that would be the Exorcist films. And what I didn't know till pretty recently was that the entire origin of it is really just from a book. Didn't know that. I just thought it was a spooky ass movie that got dropped and made really spectacular waves in the horror community. And I remember when I was a kid, my dad telling me about this movie. It was the scariest movie. It was the devil, and it was just so terrible. Keep in mind, he's from like the early 50s. 50s. You can quote me on that part. But so I grew up hearing all the stories like this is the scariest movie ever. Nothing can top it. All that. And I was fully on board the first time I saw it. I think I was 17, 18, right in there. My sister had a friend over. Her friend brought it. I think I watched maybe 20, 30 minutes with them. And then they're like, screw it, let's watch something else. Or they were going to bed or whatever. So I was like, hey, you mind if I watch it? They're like, yeah, sure, what the hell. So took it, went up to my room, threw it in, watched the rest of the movie. Absolutely spectacular. End credits where I'm like, wow, that was a really great movie. Kick it out of the DVD player, put it back in the case, close the case, put it on the opposite side of my room where my from my bed, put all of the clothes I have laying on the floor because I was a teenager, and that's why I was not very up on keeping my room clean at the time. Kind of like now, hence why you only ever get that wall. And that's where it sat until the sun rose, and then I returned it graciously with a thank you, and that was that. And of course, once I started building up said collection, I picked it up because it's kind of one of those movies you kind of have to own if you own horror movies. Now I've got all the slashers: Chucky, Freddy, Jason, all of them. So having the Exorcist franchise kind of felt weird. And I started with the original and then I worked my way all the way through. And for a lot of these, this is going to be the first time I've watched them. Whereas with the original here, I've probably seen it 6 times. Been about 6 times in the last 15 odd years. So let's get into it. The Exorcist is the story of a young girl, Regan, played by Linda Blair, and easily her most famous role. And over the course of the movie, it goes from what's going on with her all the way up to okay, she's possessed and the exorcism. But running kind of tantamount to her is the story of Father Karras, who is a Catholic priest who has sort of lost his faith in God, and he's kind of dealing with that and having to deal with sort of the ramifications of can I be a priest if I don't believe? Is there a God? And then his mother passes, and he's not feeling it anymore until he's brought into Reagan's story, where he's still not a believer. He's still not a believer, but at the end, he's able to re-find his faith in the pursuit of saving this girl. Now, running under that story is bookended by the story of another uh, Jesuit priest, and I did Google this. Jesuit priests are basically Catholic preachers who run around the world. You know, where do you need me? Here you go. We go here. We do this. You know, the sort of like soldiers of God type of thing. And that would be Father Marin, played by Max von Sydow. Sydow. You know the name, even if I can't pronounce the last name entirely correctly. He was a phenomenally amazing actor. Everything he touched seemed to turn to gold, and this is definitely something. I don't even know if even in the extended edition that I have, I don't even know if he has 10 minutes of screen time really, but he perfectly bookends this with the opening. He's in Iraq, archaeologist digging stuff up, and then he finds a statue of like a demon. And there's a really beautiful shot of him going through the desert and coming face to face with a statue. And for anybody who saw like Endgame or Rocky Four, It is the man against the immortal Titan thing. It is the kind of that face off. There's some space between them, and you just get this look. Like you're like, oh, holy crap! Like this is spectacularly well shot, right there. Absolutely love that. Entirely honest. Now the makeup effects later on in the film for as Regan's possession is getting worse and worse and worse, and her face is all and all that. That's all spectacular, but this might be my favorite shot in the whole film. So let's cover the good things. Good things is the slow burn. Now, with slashers, I hate slow burns. With action movies, I hate slow burns. Like, no, you got 15 minutes to get me in, and then I'm out. And the opening shot with Marin, you don't really get a whole lot there. You get kind of a hint, bit of a setup, but there's nothing to literally or metaphorically reach out and grab you. But the slow burn of it works. You know, you're kind of invested in this story because the spooky happenings are the noises in the wall, the rats, what's going on here. And then it progresses to Regan's having emotional outbursts, things that aren't characteristic of her. And, like, her mom is an actress, happens to be in this town where Father Karras is also. And they do have kind of a seeing each other at a distance while she's at work and he's just kind of passing through type of thing. Which I do like. It's kind of that little, that these two they're not in the same bubble, but they're close enough to be aware of each other's bubble. And she's going through the same thing any parent would be doing. Hey, what's up with my kid? I've recently separated from my husband. Is this what's causing it? Is it something in her head? Is she suffering from bipolar? Is it A, B, C, D? What is it? And they go through all of the tests. There are x-rays, CAT scans, the whole 9 yards. Everybody looks at her, but nobody can figure it out. And that's in sort of a really odd way. Because when you're coming into a movie called The Exorcist, you really don't give a damn about x-rays. You really don't. But I think by checking all of these boxes, it does help kind of carry you through. And I'll be entirely honest, the first time I saw it, as I was going through, I was like, maybe it is just something in her head, and it's a fake out ending. No, they're going to call an exorcist and come to find out she has split personalities or something like that. And I really think that the first half of this really helps sell that, because I don't know. And when Father Karras comes into it, who is a psychologist and a priest, when he's first introduced to Regan, his job is to decide whether or not an exorcism is needed. Because exorcisms in the Catholic Church are not they happen every week thing. There's a big, long process, especially now in the more modern times where we know things about mental health and is this person have a head injury from falling off a horse, or do they have a tumor? What is it? And so by following all of these exams all the way up to him coming in, maybe it is just something like that. But then sort of through his own journey through it, we're like, all right, it's nothing goofy. It's nothing goofy. It's real. Oh no. And absolutely slow burn pays off on this. 110%. Now with Karras, like I touched on, he's a man losing his faith. He was fully devout, and now it's dwindling. And I'll openly admit I'm not a very religious person, but I do understand the having trouble with faith. Absolutely get it. And if faith is a big part of your life, go for it 110%. And with Karras, it's just kind of on that razor's edge. He just doesn't know anymore. And that could be him leaning too far into science and just like, I can't find that in my faith. The rationality and the faith part, they clash too much. And then his mother passes, and that's kind of no, I'm done. That's kind of he's fallen off the horse type. And then when the word comes down that, oh, Regan, hey, there's this girl, would you mind looking into her? And he does, and it's completely on the board. All right, so I got to touch on Regan's side of the story to kind of get the entire rest of the movie through. So, teenager outbursts. These days, you kind of see stuff like this on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, all that stuff of a kid raging against everybody who can get inside of an arm's reach. But it's when she really starts acting weird. Like, she's on the bed screaming for her mom, and the bed is bouncing from one corner post to the other. How could a person actually do that? And the doctors are like, oh, it was a muscle spasm, that's how that happened. But how it doesn't line up. Especially after her mother jumps on the bed, and it doesn't even slow down. And then uh, later on in the movie, she comes down the stairs, like, backwards on, like, yeah, and blood out of her mouth. It's a beautiful little creepy ass shot, but you're like, okay, something's definitely weird. And then as her possession's getting worse, you're seeing damage on her face and all that. And a friend of her mom's and is found dead outside the house one night. Well, he had come to the house and had been left with her, and then somehow died right outside, right in between the time when the nanny left and when the mother got home. That was like 5-10 minutes. And the mother is answering questions and goes up to see her daughter, and that's when everything kind of goes really weird. And if you know, it's the crucifix scene with the and the head spins around 180 and talking in his voice, and things are moving around the room. That's the, oh yeah, this is definitely bad. And that's when her mother goes to see Karis, and hey, do you mind? And that's where Karis kind of comes in. They've already moved all of the furniture except for the bed out, and they've tied Regan down so she doesn't harm herself or anybody else. And by the time he comes in, the room is freezing cold. You can see his breath, and she's just terrible looking, and the contacts are in. Just, if you walked into a room and saw this girl, you'd nope. You would nope yourself right out the front door, down the street to the bus stop, get on a bus, go to the airport, and you're going to like anywhere but here, like Italy, Norway, Jersey. There are scarier things there. And he's trying to figure it out. He even tries recording her and finds out, oh, she's speaking English backwards, and he listens to it like, wow, there's a lot of weirdness here going on. And Pea Soup throws up. Now I'm going to give it to, actually, I can look it up right here. Jason Miller, the actor who plays Karis. In the infamous throwing up scene, they didn't know it was gonna hit him in the face. They were aiming for his chest, and it was just gonna be a wham done, but it hit like all up in his face, in his mouth. Now, he didn't like that. That was like, yeah, that probably pissed me off too. But I would absolutely give them this. That was a perfect shot. Like that, really, I'm glad that made its way into the movie, because that really kind of adds on to the of it all. And yes, you can quote me with the face too. And he splashes her with holy water, but it's really just tap water, and she reacts and all that. And he finally gets to the point where he's like, all right, I think an exorcism is needed. So they call Marin, who, the story of him is that 20 odd years earlier he almost died doing an exorcism in Africa. Took him allegedly months. I'll get there. So he comes, and we get the famous shot of the cab pulling up in front of the house. It is dark, and there's a street lamp, and he's got the case. And he comes in, and they're like, all right, let's do this. And what I really love is when he comes into the house, you can hear the demon upstairs screaming Marin. Like, oh, oh. And that was a little subtle nod I didn't even pick up the first time. But there is a shot during the exorcism where Regan breaks free, and she's screeching, and then the priests are up against the wall. It's Regan, and then there's like the lamp shining up, and when it shines up, it reveals the statue that Marin saw in the desert. And then it's like, oh no, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect, because now it's, oh, now I get why Marin's here, how the demon knows Marin. The beginning of it now makes sense with the end of it, and Karis is having real issues now. because he's a man who's lost his faith and now is literally being faced with the antithesis of what he had faith in. So he isn't doing too good, especially when the demon starts talking in his mother's voice. And Marin tells him, like, no, you can't do this because the demon it'll won't be able to hit you physically because she's tied down, but it'll try to hit you psychologically. And using his mother is a very good way of doing that. It'll lie, or worse, it'll lie with the truth, which is absolutely perfect characterization of evil. Um, Evil using the truth against you is something that doesn't sound right, but when it's done right, it's amazingly good. And this is a really good example of that because mimicking the voice, it knows things. It's lying with the truth. It's not his mother, but it's close enough that in such a fragile state that he's in, it's clicking. And he's like, all right, I'm out. Like, you're right. I'm no good here. So Marin starts going. And Karis goes downstairs and the mom asks him, is my daughter gonna die? Because she's gone through all of this. And this is pretty much her last chance. And Karis says no. She's not gonna die, and he gets up and he goes back into the room. But by the time he gets up there, Marin's already dead. So Karis snaps. He just starts wailing on Regan and tells the demon, take me, leave her, take me. And the demon hops out of her and into him. And it's a really good shot because he instantly lets go of her and his eyes change and he's fighting it. And then you see the eyes go away. He comes back just long enough to jump out the window like the guy previously had died. Goes right out the window down the stairs and injures himself so much that he does end up passing at the end of the movie. And Regan is safe and all that, and they're done. But I forget what saint it is, medal that Karis had is given to Regan and her mom. This is kind of the keep you safe, all that. And that's kind of the end of the movie. And it's pretty solid. Again, slow burn, works up, and then it is so jam-packed the last half hour. Once Karis says, we're doing an exorcism, it doesn't stop. Which was really saying something, because there's only like 3 punches, nothing explodes, but it is jam-packed, front to back, moment to moment, all the way to the end. And any movie that can start off good and build better by the end absolutely deserves an A+ in all categories. Now, is there anything I don't like? I mean, this isn't a movie I'm going to grab off the shelf every time. I'm not going to be like, I want to watch a scary movie and grab this. It doesn't have that same kind of rewatchable enjoyment that a slasher movie, a good old-fashioned 80s slasher would have. But this is definitely something you want to throw on because the music is fantastic. The shots are good. The directing is great. The acting is weirdly superb. And especially because Linda Blair was like 12, 13 at the time. And she really kills it. Especially during the possession, because it's not her voice. They had another lady ADR her. But the physicality is all her. And the set, because they needed to see everybody's breath, was literally a freezer. And even to this day, Linda Blair says that she cannot stand being cold. So she suffered for her craft and absolutely deserves every piece of praise thrown on her for this movie. Honestly, I can't give it a high enough praise. I think it does help the story passed down through the years of this is so scary, this is so scary. There are a lot of other horror movies I've seen going into it of, I've heard this is so scary, let's see what it's like. And it's helped build the anticipation for it. And I think that's what's helped The Exorcist last this long, is the word of mouth, on top of everything else. Ah, boy. So, what do I have to give it? I don't have a single choice at all, but to give it a 5 out of 5. It is spectacular. It's definitely worth seeing. The stories of the original screenings are a lot of fun to read. I do advise, if you've never seen this before, to run read a couple of those on IMDb's trivia. I did just before I did this, and wow, I can see why a lot of people would probably have negative reactions to this movie. Me, on the other hand, absolutely adore it. If it is probably on my list of 100 movies to see before you die, and I say that with nothing but love and praise. Unfortunately, they made sequels. Now, right now, I've only seen the first one, which I'll be recording right after this one. Yeah, it's that bad. But anyway, I'm Rob. Take it easy.
A few moments later.
Alright, so time to do the usual plug. And I'm actually going to plug a channel from Decker Shadow, the guy who really ultimately kind of gave me the final push to do this for myself. I always wanted to do it, and he's been releasing videos for years and years, and I've always enjoyed his stuff. Absolutely think he's worth a watch. I'll tag him up in here somewhere, and then I'll plug me, because might as well plug yourself, because nobody else will.